Okay, so you've probably seen a flute, right? Maybe you even played one in school band. But what if I told you its story involves like 30,000-year-old caves, some seriously high-tech upgrades that changed music forever, and even modern-day beatboxing? Yeah, the flute's journey is way more epic than you think. Let's get into it. So riddle me this. What's the connection between a prehistoric cave and that song you've got on repeat on your phone? It sounds kind of random, I know, but the answer is actually the flute, one of the oldest and coolest instruments humans have ever made.
All right, so our story starts way back at the very beginning with the flute's super humble origins.
And when I say way back, I am not kidding. Archaeologists have found actual flutes made from animal bones in caves that are over 30,000 years old. To put that into perspective, our ancestors were making music long before they even figured out farming. Just let that sink in for a second. That's wild.
Now, these weren't the shiny silver instruments you see in an orchestra today. Nope. Think of them as the original acoustic version. Just a hollow tube, maybe from a bird bone or a piece of wood, with a few holes drilled into it. You just cover the holes with your fingers to change the notes. Super simple, but for its time, absolutely revolutionary.
So, next up, the ultimate upgrade. Because just like any piece of tech we use today, the flute got a series of massive level-ups that gave it some serious superpowers.
The first big change was the material. For centuries, flutes were made of wood, but then in the 1800s, makers started switching to metal. You can kind of think of it like the difference between an acoustic guitar and an electric one. The wooden flute had this warm, classic sound, but the metal one, it was louder, tougher, and could fill a huge concert hall with sound, no problem.
But the flute's biggest, most game-changing upgrade came from this one guy, Theobald Bohm. See, he realized the finger holes on flutes weren't placed for the best sound. They were just put wherever they were easy to reach. And he was like, nope, we can do better. He wanted to design an instrument based on pure physics.
So he completely redesigned the whole thing. He put the holes in the acoustically perfect spots, and then he built this genius system of keys and pads so you could still cover them all. It was like going from a basic video game controller to a full-on pro setup with custom triggers and buttons. All of a sudden, the flute could play perfectly in tune, hit every single note with precision, and players could basically unlock a whole new level of speed and skill.
And, you know, like any good game, you don't just have one hero. The flute has a whole squad, a family of instruments, each with his own special role. So let's assemble the team.
First, you've got your standard concert flute. That's kind of your main character, the versatile hero. Then there's the piccolo, the small one with the superpower of hitting these piercingly high notes that can slice right through the sound of 100 other instruments. And for support, you've got the alto and bass flutes, the big ones that lay down those deep, moody background vibes.
Okay, so with all these new powers, the flute became a total superstar. Composers couldn't get enough of it. So let's do a super quick tour through some of its greatest hits. Back in the Baroque era, you had Bach, the master architect, writing these incredibly complex and beautiful lines for it. Then Mozart came along, the king of catchy melodies, and he wrote these concertos that are still top-tier bangers today. The Romantic era turned up the drama with these epic, emotional pieces, and then composers like Debussy used the flute to paint these dreamy, atmospheric soundscapes. And because of its high, clear, and really agile voice, the flute often got typecast in the orchestra. You know, anytime a composer wanted the sound of a bird or maybe a theme for a magical character, the flute was their go-to.
But this story does not end in some dusty old concert hall. Oh no, the flute is still evolving, still getting remixed and reinvented by a whole new generation of musicians.
So you still think the flute is just for old-school classical music? Well, get ready to have your mind blown.
Today, players are pushing the flute to its absolute limits with what they call extended techniques. They are literally beatboxing into it, creating rhythm and melody at the exact same time. They're singing while they play to create their own harmonies. They're even shredding in jazz bands and running their sound through electronic effects pedals. The flute is officially a modern-day powerhouse. So, there you have it. From a simple bone pipe played in a cave 30,000 years ago all the way to a high-tech beatboxing instrument on a modern stage, the flute's journey is one of the greatest stories in music. And the best part? That story is still being written. Makes you wonder, what's the next chapter going to sound like?